Okay, so at the top of your page you should have graph quadratics. So if you think back to linear functions, we made those tables. You had them on your quiz last week where you had your x column, and then we put your function, and then we put your y, and where you solved it, and we had our x, y. Everybody remember what we're talking about? So if we look at back to here, our linear functions, remember how we made the table with those? Yeah. Okay, so when we're doing quadratics, we're doing these same tables. We are adding one extra value to it though. Okay, so when we're doing quadratics, you can tell when it's going to be a quadratic because you're going to have x squared. So I want to graph y equals x squared plus 1. Okay, so remember that little 2 is our exponent, that means squared. So we're going to make our table. So we'll have our x values. We'll have x squared plus 1. We'll have our y values. And then we'll have our xy. Okay, so our x values we're going to use -2, -1, 0, 1, and then we're going to add the value of 2, and you will see why in a minute why we need to add that extra value. Okay?
Is it always going to be 2?
Yes. Okay, so now we need to solve it. So in the next part where we have our x squared plus 1, we're going to write -2 squared plus 1. So remember, -2 squared means I'm taking -2 times -2. So what is -2 times -2?
4.
4 plus 1
5.
gives me 5. So my ordered pair is
-2, 5.
-2, 5. Okay, so for the next one, I have -1 squared plus 1. So -1 squared is 1 plus 1, 2. So I have a -1, 2. Okay. Then I have 0 squared plus 1. So 0 squared is what? 0 plus 1, 1. So I have 0, 1. Okay. 1 squared plus 1 gives me 2. So I have 1, 2. And then 2 squared plus 1. What's 2 squared?
4,
Plus 1 gives me 5. So what do you notice about these ordered pairs?
2, -2, 5. Then there's a -1, 2. Then
Okay.
there's a +1, 2. Then there's +2, 5.
So why is that?
So it makes an X.
It's not going to make an X.
You make it.
It's going to make something. But why is that? Why do we have that pattern? Think of what are we doing to our x each time.
Switching it out with a number.
But what type of number? What are we doing to it? We're doing what? Multiplying by what? Not by 2. What did I do here? -2 times what?
-2.
Which is
Times it by itself.
times it by itself. So should I have negatives over here?
No.
No, unless I'm subtracting. Right? Because if I'm taking a negative number, timesing itself, it's automatically going to turn it to positive. Then determining whether you are adding or subtracting, you may end up with some negatives. But this first step should not cause any negatives. Okay? So now we're going to graph. And I noticed most of my values are all positive. The y's are all positive, so I made a bigger graph towards the top.
That's smart.
I only have to go to 2 on either side, but I'm going to go to 3. Okay, so my first order pair is negative 2, 5. So starting at the origin, going left 2, and then I'm going up 5. Negative 1, 2, I'm going left 1, up 2. 1, 2, or sorry, 0, 1, I'm staying at 0, going up 1. Now 1, 2, go right 1, up 2, and then 2, 5, right 2, up 5. So then I'm going to connect them all together. And it looks like a U, but in math terms, we call that a parabola. So this is considered a parabola. Whenever it goes up and makes that U shape, it's going to be a parabola. So whenever it's a quadratic, you're always going to get this shape. Okay, so if you don't get this shape, you did something wrong. You're always going to have that U-type figure.
Could it be up or could it be down sometimes?
Okay, so if you look, our X was what? Was it positive or negative?
Oh, positive.
It's positive, in which way is it going? Up. Okay. Questions so far? Okay, let's try another one. So I have y equals negative x squared plus 4. Okay, so we have our x column. We have our negative x squared plus 4. We have our y column. And we have our xy. So same thing, our values are negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. Now when we look at this, we need to think of it as a negative 1 times a negative 2 squared plus 4. We can't forget about that negative 1 that's in front of our x. Okay, so we need to take negative 2 squared first. So negative 2 squared is positive 4 times a negative 1.
Wait.
Positive 4 times negative 1.
Oh, negative 4.
Negative 4 plus 4 gives me a 0. So my order pair is negative 2, 0. Same thing, I've got a negative 1 times a negative 1 squared plus 4. So negative 1 squared first, so negative 1 times negative 1, positive 1. Yeah, positive 1 times a negative 1 gives me a negative 1 plus 4. So what's negative 1 plus 4 going to give me? 3. So negative 1, 3 is my ordered pair. So negative 1 times 0 squared plus 4. So 0 squared is going to give me 0. Times a negative 1 is still going to give me 0. Plus 4 is going to give me 4. So now I'm at 0, 4. Have I lost anybody yet? Okay, so remember this negative 1 is coming from when there's no number in front of my x. So the first step, order of operations, I have to do exponents before I multiply. So for this one, for positive 1, when I write it, I've got negative 1 times 1 squared plus 4. So order of operations tells me I got to do my exponents first. So I'm taking 1 to the second power, which is 1 times 1, which is going to give me 1, times a negative 1. So positive 1 times negative 1 gives me negative 1 plus 4 gives me 3. So I have 1, 3. So then the last one, I've got a negative 1 times 2 squared plus 4. So exponents first. 2 squared gives me 4 times a negative 1.
Negative 4.
Negative 4 plus 4
0.
gives me 0. So then I have 2, 0. Alright, so now I can graph. Alright, so my first one is negative 2, 0. So I'm going left 2, and then I'm staying put. Negative 1, 3. So I go up there. 0, 4. Puts me up top on the y-axis. 1, 3. Go right 1. Up 3. 2, 0. Right 2. Stay there. So when I connect my parabola, which way is it pointing?
Going down.
Why is it going down this time?
Because
It's a negative. So when it's a negative x, it's going to go down. When it's a positive x, it's going up. Okay? So this is why I said at the beginning of the year it's so important to know your integers, because we're just going to keep building on them all year long, and you guys thought I was absolutely crazy that you had to know your integers, and I kept saying come in and get some extra help so you know these integers. You don't know your integers, you're not going to be able to do this. You could know every step of doing it, but you don't know your integers, you're not going to succeed. And I hate to say it that way, but it's the truth. So you're going to need to slow down on this and be very careful on your integers. Because I will be honest, this last one, when I was making the example this morning, I did it wrong. Okay? I will show you. I did it completely wrong. Because I forgot about my negative. So, by just forgetting that negative, I did the entire problem wrong. Okay? Because I was in a hurry. 6:30 this morning, trying to get done since I was gone yesterday. So, you have to be careful and slow down on your work. Okay? Go ahead and flip to your table of contents, fill it out for graphing quadratic. Today is 2:15.
well, I can